Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagay. Well, sad news, the fatality rate has climbed to 11. 6 are in critical condition, and we still haven't got a confirmed number of the amount of total injured. We have a lot of people who are flying off the handle, thanks to mainstream media not giving us the facts, covering up for the government. And I'm going to prove that to you. Now, I'm hoping that by the time you're done watching this, first of all, you're going to have more information than, from what I've seen, anybody has even tried to dig to give you an explanation of what happened, what the problem is, and how we can fix it. I'm hoping that if you like, share, and subscribe, we can get this out and end the either extreme left from saying, now's not the time to talk about it, this isn't, the right side saying, holy Jesus, and we've got everything from, this is a full-blown terrorist attack, he doesn't look Chinese, he's this Muslim, he's the Christian, he's the... How can anybody possibly say anything without facts? This has always driven me absolutely insane. I'm going to lay out to you the facts. And then from there, you'll be able to have your opinion on it. And I can tell you one thing, I'm going to settle a whole bunch of leftist lies and rightist extremism. We'll have that covered by the end of this show. And it'll surprise you. I'm going to use a case that just happened to start off with, to give you an idea of what the actual problem is in Canada. And then we'll go some stats, and then we'll dig into the guy who did this attack, what led up to it, and how I think we can fix the problem. Let's start right here.
Okay, so the story of how someone tried to murder me in Vancouver.
Stephanie's story starts just after midnight on April 15th. Visiting from Toronto, she was walking through Stanley Park when she heard a man's voice.
He just ran at me to attack me.
Reliving the moment on TikTok a week later.
It just felt like he was a predator and I was prey.
Now screaming, fighting off the assailant, she ran, but he caught up.
Just slammed me into the ground. The only way I can describe him was being like gleeful. Like he was taking great joy in hurting me.
She called police and ran again. The suspect was right behind her.
I was kicking the fucking out of him, like kicking his chest, kicking his face, screaming. He was yelling at me like, shut up, you stupid bitch.
Already injured and bleeding, the chase continued.
He really started wailing specifically on my head. My vision just went blank, and I just thought like, oh my God, I'm gonna die.
After catching up to her a fourth time, Stephanie managed to escape again, running on this path towards the Westin Bayshore Hotel, where she caught the attention of plainclothes officers. The suspect was arrested shortly after.
He did actually break my nose. My hands, my legs were all bloody.
A man in his 30s, Peter Hans Nungu, has been charged with 1 count of assault causing bodily harm. He appeared in court Wednesday afternoon and was released with the following conditions: 24-hour house arrest, a psychiatric assessment and treatment program, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and he must have no contact with the victim. Just 2 days before, Nungu was charged in Surrey with assaulting a police officer and uttering threats.
I have to commend her courage, her composure, her resilience, her tenacity, not only to fight through what she went through, being attacked by a complete stranger, but then to tell her story.
Now back in Toronto, recovering emotionally and physically, this is her message.
The only thing I can say to any other women is fight Like, it doesn't fight, just fucking fight.
Emily Lazatin, Global News.
Great words of advice. What I taught my daughters. And I actually taught them how to fight when they were young. So that is like, right there, this is happening every day. Not exactly those circumstances. Violent crime in Canada is higher per capita than it is in the United States. You can thank the liberal soft on crime helped by the NDP policies and legislation. They believe they know best. They know better than parents about their own children. They know better than teachers about their job. They know better about the climate than real scientists. They know best, and they have enacted every possible piece of legislation and bill in order to remove your rights. The kicker is they are also removing the rights of the first line of defense, which is the police, the mental health agencies, the doctors, the nurses. We've seen this with the Wuhan. Take it or lose your job. This isn't how society is made to run. I was fortunate enough that I grew up in a house where my parents looked after mentally handicapped people. They've changed the name many times on how to call the people. So some people will be like, that's not what they're called now. You know what? Whatever. And they were quite astute on reading and trying to figure each individual, because no two were the same. And I'm a reader and a learner. So I was taught on how to learn to deal with situations in order to deflate them. But yet there was always government policies telling you what you can and cannot do. Government knows best, right? Well, this government is literally, like I've proven on previous episodes, a fascist government. And we're repeating the same thing that happened where his dad did to us way back when. Spend piles of money, create as much social, call it justice, being very progressive, all the while, all it was doing was removing rights. And in doing so, they're blowing huge amounts of money that we don't have, which causes, like what happened when I was a kid, people lost their houses, suicide was at an all-time high, food was unaffordable. Everything we're seeing today, crime was rampant. And all of these policies are what's causing a lot of what we're seeing today. And I'm going to prove it to you. Now this is the parent of the man who attacked that woman.
We are all devastated. We are all broken down mental.
Peter Hans Nungu's family shattered.
He was supposed to be taken to the hospital. That's when we called for help.
Less than 2 days before Nungu is accused of assaulting a tourist on Vancouver's seawall, his mother says his family called police because the 34-year-old was agitated at the Surrey home he shared with his partner and 3 children.
There is an element of intimate partner violence in the file.
Nungu Magdalene says her son experienced a mental health crisis a year ago, which he recovered from, But on April 13th, he was off his medication and needed help.
Mr. Nungu was arrested for 1 count of assaulting a peace officer, 1 count of uttering threats, and 1 count of uttering threats to damage property.
And he was taken to jail because he was resisting strongly because of his mental health situation.
Nungu was released from custody the next day, April 14th, on 6 conditions, including that he have no contact with the 2 alleged victims.
I was so surprised on the 15th morning they called to say it's in jail again. He's supposed to be in the hospital.
He just ran at me to attack me.
Hours after his release, Nungu was arrested and charged with assault causing bodily harm after a Toronto woman was injured in a stranger attack in Cole Harbour.
It just felt like he was a predator and I was prey.
Well, they are in hospital right now being reviewed, but we do have some concerns not about them getting assessed, but the fact that that person may be back out in community.
And I'm very hopeful that this individual, that there'll be interventions to ensure that this individual does not repeat a cycle of violence.
Nungu was released again Wednesday on stricter conditions, including living with his mother under 24/7 house arrest. But she says he's currently in a mental health hospital.
I'm so devastated about all what happened because he was not taken to the right time to the mental hospital.
Kristen Robinson.
Are you seeing the pattern here? The facilities that are there don't have the authority anymore to deal with it. The police who are on the first line of defense don't have the authorization or ability to deal with it. It's all been taken away because the government knows best. The mum was calling out for help. The government knows best. The police needed help. The government knows best. Now, just like what happened to Canadians during the first Trudeau, our big step into socialism, and government knows best, like I said, we had the same thing we have today. Suicide at an all-time high. Except for this Trudeau has caused even more damage. Record numbers of suicide. Broke his dad's. Blew that. Blew Canada's. We're talking blowing all the stats right off the doors. Violent crime. Crime against women. Murder. And like I said earlier, per capita. Violent crime. All violent crime. Tent cities. Homelessness. Cost of living. Food crisis. Can't afford food. Mental health. Everything. Here's some stats. On the left is males, on the right is females. The top being the blue is the wealthiest, the highest income. The green on the bottom being the lowest income. You can pretty much see how they were slowly starting to come up after the Liberals prior to Harper. So 2011 to 2014, they were slowly starting to rise. The lower class had plateaued. Still pretty low though. Trudeau comes into power. They start to free fall. This is the complete destruction of the middle class from socialist policies. Well, we'll just tax more off of the middle class and give it to the lower class, and then everybody will be middle class. This is their mentality. Socialist. They have no bloody idea how an economy and a democracy is supposed to work. Then they went into free fall as the policies started kicking in. By 2017, if you notice how tight the lines started to get. Now remember, they were running somewhat parallel to each other. all of a sudden the lines are getting closer to each other. Before the Wuhan hit, which is where this line starts, we were in free fall. Don't let the media tell you that the whole mental health thing is all because of the Wuhan. That is a lie. That is them protecting their liberal socialist masters. This is from direct policies from the liberal NDP. Now, I learned a word growing up with handicapped people, and it's called enabling. And I also learned this because I have teachers in my life. This word explains our government very well. Remove the rights of those who should be the ones and want to help, teach, raise, do good, and give extra rights to the people who do harm or need help, but don't have the ability on their own to do it. This is just facts. Sorry. Now, the government likes to say, well, we put record money into mental health. And the media backs it up. Oh, this government's great. They're going to put all this money into mental health. And guess what? They're telling you the truth, but they're also lying right to your face. Because with that record amount of money, they added a whole bunch of enabling policies. Those policies being things like safe injection. Who pays for that? Well, it comes all out of the same funds. Unfulfilled promises. The Canada Mental Health Transfer Promise in 2021 was not implemented as a standalone initiative, leading to the criticism from the Canadian Mental Health Association for failing to address community-based care needs. Underfunding. Canada spends 6.3% of its health budget on mental health, compared to 9 to 15% in peer countries like France, Germany, and the UK. Mental health accounts for 10 to 15% of Ontario's disease burden, but receives only 7% of the healthcare dollars. Now, they use Ontario in this because it's the largest province, most populated. Resulting in an estimated $1.5 billion funding shortfall. Access barriers. Long wait times, 6 months to a year in Ontario. Cost barriers, 57% of 18 to 24-year-olds cite cost as an obstacle, and stigma continue to limit access, particularly for youth, rural communities, and Indigenous populations. Community-based cares. Critics argue that funding prioritizes hospital-based services over community providers, leaving nonprofits and charities to fill gaps. Only physician or hospital-based services are covered by public health insurance, forcing many to pay out of pocket for psychotherapy or counseling. Like the mother of what I just showed you, who was calling for help, but couldn't get it and doesn't have the money to do it herself. These are policies of the Liberal NDP government. Enable those weakest, those with evil in heart, the criminals, soft on crime, out on bail, out on the streets, keep doing it over and over and over and over again, tying the hands of the judicial system, and then take away the rights of the people who see what's going on firsthand, are living with it, and would like to do something about it. Now you're saying, Alias, what's this got to do with what just happened? This is where we get serious. We're going to start on his case. I'll read this. You can follow along. Last week, FBI Detroit Special Agent Mary Schneider told the Detroit Free Press that the FBI helped Hamtramck police in identifying and locating the person accused of making threats against Mayor Amir Ghaib and other city council members. Ghaib said that he and some city council members received death threats from a man in Canada who was arrested a few days later in a connection with the homicide in Vancouver. Galib said that during the last week of January, he received via Facebook threats from a man named Dwight William Kemech, who wrote that he was going to end Galib by shooting him at the next city council meeting, set for January 29th. Some members of Hamtramck City Council received similar threats, he said. Now, he goes on, he says he talks about the place, and he does all the rest of this. 3 days after the threats, police in Vancouver arrested Kemech, age 39, on January 28th, and later charged him with second-degree murder in the homicide of Alexander Lowe, 31, of Vancouver. Media outlets in Canada said it was the first homicide of the year in Vancouver. In a press release issued by the Vancouver police, there was no mention of threats against Hamtramck's officials. Why? This is media. This is a sad. We don't have journalists in mainstream. Just because the police don't give you information doesn't mean that you don't have to do your job. Like what I'm doing. For my viewing audience. Just the facts. Media outlets in Canada said, okay, blah, blah, blah. Where was I here? But Galib said FBI agents told him on February 21st that the Vancouver police in Canada had arrested Kemech in connection with the killing of Lowe. Police coordinated with the FBI and the Canadian authorities, and the guy was arrested, Galib said. Unfortunately, he killed someone 3 days after sending this threat to me, and he was arrested after that. Our police and the FBI agents kept updating me on how they were handling the case. I do thank them and the Canadian authorities, blah, 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 blah. Here it is.
On Sunday, the Vancouver Police Department is investigating Vancouver's first homicide of the year at East Vancouver's Kensington Cedar Cottage neighborhood.
The VPD says they were called to the area just after 1 a.m. They found a deceased man inside the residence whose identity is unknown at the time. The VPD says it arrested a 39-year-old suspect at the scene.
Vancouver police have taped off the majority of Henry Street, just off of 33rd Avenue. Both entrances to the alley were also cordoned off to the public. A police officer is seen guarding a house where the victim was possibly located. City News spoke to a neighbor who didn't want to be on camera, and they said in the early hours of the morning they heard police sirens and saw a heavy police presence in the area. They reported police searching the area with flashlights, and they said incidents like this are uncommon for the area. The VPD says there's no risk to the public at this time, and the investigation is ongoing. In Vancouver, Angela Bauer, City News.
Now, I'm going to fill you in on what the news isn't telling you. This is where I can't give you names, and I can't share a lot of this information. But here's what I've discovered so far. Now, I'm not going to say this is 100% fact, but this is what I've pieced together. The older brother who lost his life was the best friend and main caretaker of his little brother, which is the character that just did all the carnage in Vancouver, who suffered from mental illness. The person who ended his brother's life, it seems as though they knew each other. Whether or not it was good or bad, I don't know. But obviously, this kid had mental problems. And a system that would not help the family. Are you catching along here? Right? Enablers. Take away all the rights of the parents, removing all of that funding, and transferring it over to other progressive ideas where they need to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And that process seems to be the major problem in what affected the man who iced his brother. Are you seeing this? Everything comes full circle, people. Buddy's going, now he's hooked on the drugs because they're easy to come by. Legislation has dropped it. Anybody who's caught selling, oh, that's an illegal limit. You're allowed to carry. Drugs start getting out of control. More and more addicts, more and more overdoses. Now this has become an epidemic. The police lose the ability to do their job through legislation. Watching the same criminals get released the next day, go back into society to repeat the same thing, for them to catch, for them to bring back in. In the meantime, piles of people are passing away or becoming addicted. Most of these people are already suffering emotional distress because the society around them, because of more government policies and outrageous spending, has created not only economic PTSD, but social PTSD. Are we seeing what's going on here? Now you have a kid with no guardian, no best friend, who I'm not sure if they witnessed this or not. I can't find any information on that. I've been digging and I can't. And if I do, I will build onto this story as this progresses and goes on. But from what I've been reading, it seems as though this kid may have actually been there. Now, that's not a fact. I'm not saying it is. But from what I've read, it's a educated assumption that all roads are leading to this fact that he may have actually witnessed this as well. So he's already suffering from problems. Can you imagine the trauma that this kid was now put under? And a family that has no ability to get the proper health, the proper care for this kid. Well, you just don't lock them up. That's just rude. Enablers. Removing the funding, putting it somewhere else, the system starts to crumble around, society's crumbling around. Now this kind of ties into that report that I talked about on a few previous episodes of the dystopia that's going to be upon us in another 15 years if we keep enablers in government with their reckless spending and their idea that they know better than you. Now, moving right along, let's listen to the latest presser.
Now, I do want to take this opportunity to lay out some facts about the incident. Here's what I can confirm at this time. Number one, the suspect has been arrested and is currently in VPD custody. Secondly, evidence points to this not being an act of terrorism. Thirdly, the individual in question has a significant history of mental health issues. And fourthly, he is known to police for a multitude of mental health interactions. Now, it would appear that mental health appears to be the underlying issue here. And I want to be clear, if anything is to come of this tragedy, it has to be change. Now, I personally will not stop calling on governments to make these changes now. We can't stop. I'll endeavor to bring everyone.
Sorry, my mic was off. Which party is asking for change? I'm just throwing it out there.
One to the table to tackle this. The provincial government, the federal government, our community partners, because Vancouver can't wait. Vancouver, we're united in your sorrow, and we're united in our resolve. This is our city.
Now, he goes on and on and on. I'm going to fast forward a little bit.
I guess given your comments, though, it makes me extra confused as to why, if you are seeing a rise in all these mental health calls and you don't know when and where they're going to strike, I'm not saying necessarily that it has to be a dump truck everywhere, because I know that's very expensive, but whether it's cruisers or some sort of other alternative, because these event organizers are typically volunteers, they don't know. So who makes that final decision as to what assets get deployed?
Well, when it comes to health-related issues, you don't know who on the street walking around has an issue. You can't be every 10 feet on every block. Could be in a mall, could be somewhere else. The question would be, how do we get to the root cause and fix it? It's not policing the symptom. We got to get to the root cause. We got to get people help. And it's not putting more cops on the street. Certainly, we're crime fighters. We're not health care fighters. So we need something at the back end. And those are other areas of responsibility, not the police.
Mike Howell from Glacier Media. I just wanted maybe to ask the Acting Chief Rye. So the public clearly understands this. You're aware you've had complaints to the police board about police with carbon rifles at Italian Days, at Pride Festival. We've seen...
Okay, we're going to go a little bit further ahead now.
Mayor Kinsim, one for you. We keep talking about getting to the root cause here, the mental health aspect of it. You've been outspoken about that in the past. Involuntary care. I think few would object to the notion that this province's healthcare system is adequate at this point. No place or city is worse impacted objectively than Vancouver by the mental health crisis. What do you want to see specifically happen, especially in light of yesterday's events? What will you lobby Premier Eby?
Now, did you hear what the reporter said? These are facts. It just seems, as uncanny as the numbers are, that mental health seems to really escalate where there are drug problems. Where are the most safe sites per capita? Who was the first to introduce safe injection sites in Canada? Well, BC. And by the way, a mayor who is responsible for mass amounts of life lost by pushing this is now running as an MP. Just throwing that out there. Math doesn't lie, people, but politicians sure do.
And the next Prime Minister for?
Yeah, look, first of all, I do want to be respectful. You know, there are a lot of people hurting in this community right now. And so I'll still answer your question, but, you know, I don't necessarily want this, to make this a political thing. Like, there are a lot of people that are hurting right now. But being consistent with what we've said in the past, we do need mandatory care for people with significant mental health challenges or substance use disorder. It's the most humane thing to do. We have people on the streets who cannot direct their own care, and they're causing harm to themselves and other people. And so what I would say, and look, it's not directed at any one political party here, because it doesn't matter who's in Victoria and who's in Ottawa, the same thing will apply, because this has been going on for far too long and throughout many administrations. We need that mandatory care faster. We need more of it, and we need it faster. We cannot take a government approach to this. Lives are on the line. Communities are at stake. And I would challenge any elected official to go to that community right now and say, you know, we're working on it. You know, and it might take a little longer. You know, these are difficult. That community is going through a really difficult time right now. And we owe it to them, and we owe it to Vancouverites to go a lot faster on this.
Which does make it political in some ways. I think a lot of people would say this is going to become political, especially tomorrow when we have a new Prime Minister elected. What do you say to people who are saying, I mean, to Premier Eby as well, we want to hear more. We want tangible action.
Yeah, I would say we want tangible action. And look at it from one perspective, it isn't getting political. Yes, we do have a federal election tomorrow. And we will have a prime minister elect, whoever that may be, probably tomorrow night or early, Tuesday morning. And the same thing will apply. And it does not matter what party that person represents. We still need that help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, this is why the day after this happened, the entire Ontario Police Union Federation, whatever you want to call it, just endorsed Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. This is why the majority of police unions and RCMP want a conservative government. They are first line. They are seeing what's happening. This is a political decision that's thrust, and it's sad that it had to happen. But maybe we can actually learn from the mistakes of this lost decade. Socialism only ends up doing one thing, and it is never good. Now, Pierre Poilievre has been saying this pretty much 4 months after he became the leader of the party. Mainstream Liberals and the NDP and Elizabeth May and her two-people Green Party, the socialist extremists, have been hammering him with the help of media, just hammering him about what this man just said needs to be done, which any educated person living in the real world knows we should be doing. And media keeps pushing it. And looking at the polls, we've got all of these leftists, these card holders, I'll never vote anything but Liberal, that may hold this socialist government in power. I'm going to give it to you literally right from Pierre's lips.
Just heard testimony from the parents of a beautiful young girl named Brianna from British Columbia, who the authorities released from a psychiatric hospital despite the fact that her parents had begged them to keep her in treatment. She had stabbed her hand with a pencil. She was clearly a very big danger to herself. The system released her, offered, of course, crack pipes and other drug paraphernalia for her to safely use drugs. She ended up in a homeless encampment where she died of an overdose, a teenager. There's no question in my mind that she should have been in mandatory, involuntary, psychiatric, and substance abuse treatment rather than in a homeless encampment in a tent. So I believe for children and for prisoners who are behind bars, there should be mandatory drug treatment when they are found to be incapable of making decisions for themselves. For adults, again, I'm still doing a lot of research on how that would work. But what I will say is we need to defund the unsafe government supply of drugs that the Trudeau and the NDP regimes are pushing on the population. We need to ban hard substances, start to prosecute drug criminals, scan the shipping containers to stop illegal drugs and guns from coming in, and treat addiction with rehab and recovery so that we can bring our loved ones home drug-free.
Now remember what the NDP did. Remember what they're screaming, the NDP and the Liberals right now, on how we can't allow the Conservatives to destroy everything, all the steps progressively forward we've done. I said this on previous episodes. I am not a card-holding conservative. I'm actually a libertarian. I have voted Liberal in the past. Obviously, I never voted for Trudeau because I study, I read, and I'm a history buff. And I lived through what his dad did to my generation and my kids' generation. And the amount of time it took for us to fix, which we still haven't fixed. And then we get Trudeau 2.0 in, who finishes off what his dad started. And literally, we have a lost decade. These are the facts. Right now, this is the party we need. And we need a majority government to first start changing every single thing that this Liberal Party has done in the last 10 years, because none of it has helped us. Not a single bill passed has helped us. It's done a little bit of good, but along with each bill becomes all of the hidden crap that they throw in there, protecting businesses, Jody Wilson-Raybould got skidded over, the backdoor dealings, the SDTC scandal, every single aspect of this government, with the help of the NDP and the Green Party, has been detrimental to our society. Now we have a kid. Yes, he's 30. He's a kid. He suffers from serious mental challenges, who just did a heinous crime. We don't have any policies that'll help this kid. Instead, he's bundled up into this enabled package that won't give him the help he needs, but will release him in record time, along with all of the other people who don't have those problems and are just not very nice people, who get released early and sent back on the streets. They've bundled everything all up into this progressive package. And this is where we are today. I hope I have enlightened you with all of the information that you need to sit back and really contemplate, how can a person possibly help this kid? How can a person give justice to the lives lost and the families of those alive that are going to live without? How are we going to fix our reputation on a global scale and on a personal level within Canada with the exact same MPs that did all this carnage to us in the first place? And here's the biggest kicker of it all, is the man who pulled the strings and guided us down this hill off a cliff is now running as a outsider. Is he an outsider? You know what? For schmitz and giggles, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you the media. The outsider, right?
The challenge for Mr. Carney is that Polling would suggest there are a number of voter groups that have not historically voted Liberal, including some Quebec nationalist bloc supporters and some lifetime New Democrats, older voters who were historically conservatives.
Some progressive conservatives.
So his challenge is to lock those new softer voters for his coalition in.
Sure.
And the challenge for Mr. Poilievre is to remind people what they fundamentally are saying in this election is, yes, they want to be strong on Trump defending Canada, but they want change. And that, it's down to the last, 5 or to 8% of undecided voters. There can be a lot of very tight races. I know that's a cliche, but I think it's particularly true if you see the national numbers. Where that breaks down in the GTA Metro Belt, in the 40 key ridings that typically decide federal elections, very hard for Conservatives, with the NDP apparently going down into single digits, but still competitive. And I think they're going to have greater intensity. So you're going to see a bunch of very close races, and it'll be on a razor's edge with undecideds determining, is it about change or the Liberal message?
Yeah, the problem, though, as you know, Mr. Kenney, Jason Kenney, is that I'm used to him being a minister or a premier still, is that for some people, Mark Carney does embody change, right? Not for everyone. Some people don't buy it, but for some people, he does.
And the rabbit that the Liberal campaign's been trying to pull out of the hat is exactly that. To say to at least a portion of the pro-change voters, this is change. I don't think that's very credible. The same team, the platform was a Trudeau platform.
That's not true. It was a Carney platform. It was not written for Justin Trudeau. That is simply not true.
Listen, this is a matter of, is that an objective CBC fact check statement? I think subjectively what I will say is...
You can say it subjectively, but objectively it is accurate to say.
You hearing this? Are you hearing this?
It reads to me like a Trudeau platform.
Well, that's fine. It can read that way to you, but that is not...
I don't know. I guess it reads...
But that's not true, she's saying. It can read to you that way, but it's not true.
CBC differently, but it reads to me like a Trudeau platform, which is interventionist, more spending, implicitly higher taxes, not addressing the fundamental issues around productivity or competitiveness, the flight of capital, the flight of investment, the decline in per capita GDP. These are the underlying issues in affordability, and I'm just...
Look how pissed she is. She's mad. He's an outsider, damn it. This is all Carney. He's not the same as Trudeau.
I think there is a tension in what's left of a swing electorate around that.
That's fine. But what my point was, because there was a conservative talking point emerging that this platform had been written for Justin Trudeau. That is not true.
Well, it reads to me like it was.
You can read it that way, but it was not written for Mr. Trudeau. Marianne.
Okay. Right. Okay. Okay, Roseanne. Okay, Rosy. Okay, Rosemary. Oh, what's this?
The Liberal platform, frankly, that's something I will say that has been ready for several weeks now. Mona Fortier was the one who was working on this, and it was ready before Mark Carney even became Liberal leader. So, he only had to tweak a couple of things.
Shall we hear it one more time there, Rosie?
The Liberal platform, frankly, that's something I will say that has been ready for several weeks now. Mona Fortier was the one who was working on this, and it was ready before Mark Carney even became Liberal leader. So, he only had to tweak a couple of things.
Once again, mainstream media doing its job. Propaganda. And that's why I started this channel. Just the facts, people. Just the facts. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And if you are, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. I'm your host, Alias Guy. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal, and stay informed.